Hey, welcome. It's not rocket science to regain control of your life now. My name is Joe, and I am a former NASA flight controller from Mission Control Houston. And now I'm a personal leadership strategist, and I help men regain the direction of their lives to create a purposeful, legacy-driven life that matters to them. So I know that everybody here has been experienced the COVID-19, I call it a vacation, if you will, and some people call it a crisis. Whatever meaning you want to put to it is your choice. And I'm sure we all are experiencing the great equalizer that we have in each of our lives. Everyone has this. We can't save it. We can't create it. We can't slow it down. We can't speed it up. And above and beyond, we're given this new gift every single day, and it's 24 hours. Oprah has this. Bill Clinton has it. Tony Robbins has it. The newborn child, the barista at your favorite Starbucks, they have the same 24 hours. And so does the homeless person who's on the street, as well as the police officers that are on the beat and other people in the world. We all have the exact quantity of 24 hours. So each day when you receive these 24 hours, you can choose to customize them in any way that you desire. Completely your choice. And so as people are becoming wealthier and poorer, their choices are creating this reality. So one of my favorite quotes is from a football coach named Bear Bryant. I think he was a coach of LSU. And he read this poem to himself every morning and every evening. And the poem goes like this. This is the beginning of a new day. God has given me this day to use as I will. I can waste it and use it, or I can use it for good. What I do with it is very important because I exchange a day of my life for it. Tomorrow, this day will be gone forever, leaving something in its place I have traded for it. And so each day you trade a minute of your life for an activity of the day, whether it's just an emotional, mental activity or physical activity, but it's your choice. And on February 1st, 2008, I chose an activity that changed the direction of my life forever. I walked into the Human Resources Department in Houston, Texas, and I requested to speak to the personnel manager. Entering her office, I handed her a letter that contained 2 lines, and these 2 lines were very important for my future. I'll read you that letter. Dear Sir, since May 10th, 1999, I've had the privilege and the honor to be part of an amazing team in construction and operation of the International Space Station from the ECLS console in Mission Control Center, Houston. Changes have occurred in my life which have brought me to choose to pursue a more fulfilling path. As of February 1st, 2008, I choose to leave NASA and pursue this path. Sincerely, Joseph Kornowski. So on that day, I walked away from a career at NASA, the manned spaceflight operation of the world. I was one of those people that worked in Mission Control Houston that you see on TV. You'd probably recognize the back of my head if I turned around. And I was part of an elite team who managed the atmosphere aboard the International Space Station in which the astronauts lived. Kind of like a submarine, self-contained. So my team and myself, we were in charge of to make sure the environment was clean, comfortable, air-conditioned, and above all, safe for them to live. Just like the ground team during the Apollo era, I was trained to prevent the crew from having a really bad day. And what this means is a bad day is we were training the crew and ourselves and the rest of the teams to make sure that the crew remained alive in the event of a catastrophic event, such as a fire aboard the space station, a rapid depressurization, or a toxic environment where they would breathe something that would cause their lives to be in jeopardy. So not to mention everything that was going on just to maintain that, but there was also that underlying stress that was always there, knowing that I had to be as perfect as humanly possible because the crew's lives were right in the palm of my hand every time I went to work and every time my team went to work in Mission Control. So you might say, this is pretty cool. And I did love my career. I was honored to go to Houston Mission Control each day and make history. Not many of us can say that, but I didn't know that I was doing this until later on. However, this love for my career resulted in a career that owned me and consumed me. Heck, my friends outside of NASA called me NASA Joe because I spent so much time there. I was at the top of my professional game and also known as somewhat of a celebrity outside of my NASA job. So from the outside looking in, it was probably like a dream life. And many people said that, wow, you get to do that every day? And it was kind of nice. But I'm not sure how everyone saw a perfect professional life that I had. And I'm not sure when the downward spiral of my life began, but after years of very intense work and study, I was unhappy and I was very lost in my life. So since 2008, I walked away from a career that I spent thousands of hours of study and thousands of dollars in college and other studying and classes. And the federal government spent hundreds of thousands of dollars training me to be one of the 10 people in the whole world that was handed and entrusted with the job of making sure the astronauts' lives were safe. So there was no pressure at all, let me tell you. And with all of that, I was very unhappy, I was burned out, and I was personally completely unfulfilled, and professionally, I was lost. So I'll ask each of you, have you ever thought about the time and the money that you spent training yourself in college and after college in your professional career on the different trainings and workshops you go to only find out that you're second guessing yourself and saying, wow, I'm not really happy? Has anyone else ever thought of that? And how important is that in their life? This was my life. I kept telling myself how great I was, how much I loved my career, and I found ways to prop up this facade of greatness. I ignored and avoided dealing with the really deep feelings of loneliness and being unfulfilled. I rationalized and justified and ignored and avoided dealing with the most inner feelings that I really needed to work on. And then I began to blame others. I looked at my job, I looked at the people that I worked with, and I said, it's all your fault. It's my boss's fault. I wasn't proud of being NASA Joe. I didn't want that life anymore. Yet out of fear of losing my real identity that I had at the time, my NASA Joe identity, I didn't want to give up this life. So I stayed, and I didn't have any clue how to fix my life or find any of the answers. I was overwhelmed and out of control with no choices in my life from my perspective. Before leaving NASA, one thing really happened to me though. As burned out as I was and at a dead end I was, a friend of mine suggested I go to a personal growth conference. And so I did go to a personal growth conference. And this is where I learned that it was okay to think about me first. Up to this point, I kept myself busy, running around, taking care of everyone else's desires, needs, and goals, fulfilling their missions and not mine, and finding out that everybody else's happiness depended on me making them happy. That's not true. What I wanted, I didn't even know what I wanted. I didn't even know it was possible to think about what I wanted. Attending this personal growth conference opened my eyes and helped me see better. So fast forward about a year, during a leadership conference, the truth of my life got right into my face. And I finally understood how unhappy I was at NASA. I was paired up with a guy named Chris, and he worked on a question to gain insight into happiness. So we both worked on it. And during this, we understood that we had to dig really, really deep, look deep inside of ourselves. And so the question was, how would you know when someone is at their rock bottom? And we were asked to look so deep into the areas that are scary, the ones that most of us avoid, and look at the real answers. And what I found scared the crap out of me because I didn't know it existed. So Chris answered the question first, and then it was my turn. I answered this question, and what I saw made me choke up. And I wasn't breathing much. And Chris looked at me and he says, okay, take a breath, breathe, and answer it. And this is what I said. How long would it be before someone discovered my dead body in my house? It seemed like 5 minutes that Chris and I just looked at each other. I couldn't believe I actually said it out loud, and Chris couldn't believe what he heard. So then Chris gave me some feedback. He says, Joe, earlier you shared with me how you spent hours and hours and days alone at home when you ended up not being at work. And so you isolated yourself. Your friends didn't come over, no one called you, your family didn't call you. And so feeling alone and frustrated and confused, I can see how you could come up with this question, how would it be in a time frame that someone would not miss you? How long would it be? And at this point, when Chris was finished talking, I was in tears. He was talking about my life. I'd isolated myself so well that I put myself into a corner. And he was right. I saw in my mind's eye, I was standing on the edge of a cliff of my life, my current life. I was standing on the cliff. I didn't have a vision of what could be better. And I thought, so this is what it's like to stand on the edge of a cliff, be backed into a corner that I created. And I had no choice to give any idea of change. And the only choice I had was to step off because I really wanted this pain to end. I wanted my life to be different, but I didn't know how. I just wanted to be better. I wanted to matter. And I ask you guys, when is the last time you looked out and then looked inside of yourself, deep inside, into those places that make you uncomfortable, the ones you avoid, the ones that you rationalize, oh, it's not that bad. And you're afraid because you're afraid of what's really there. Maybe there's some emotions and memories that you don't want to deal with. Maybe there's some put off dreams and desires that you repressed and put off because your life went in a different direction that someone else chose for you. Maybe there's also, you might be afraid to find the real you, the person who really wants to come out. Find yourself that you forgot about years and years ago as you started down your path. Then, without me speaking a word, Chris asked a simple question, one that I never thought I'd ask, never thought of asking. If you could, Joe, if you could stop your life and change it and rearrange everything to make it the way you wanted to make it, what would that be worth to you? What would that look like if you could do that? It was like someone opened a door and a breath of fresh air came in. I never knew it was possible. I had no idea what my life would look like yet. On February 1st, I walked away from my dream job. And that was my first step to take control of my life. I raised my hand and asked for help because I couldn't do it alone. It's an extremely rewarding path to personal transformation. With the guidance of my many coaches and my mentors and people like Chris in my life who are not afraid to ask me that hard question and help me answer it from a loving perspective. I got used to looking into the really scary places, and I got used to finding the real answers that made a difference in my life and made it even better. And I also found questions and answers that I didn't even know existed, just like Chris talked about. And you've probably asked, what does this story have to do with me? Why am I telling you this story? I'm sure there's a couple of people out there that have avoided things and they know deep down they want something differently, but they've been doing the same thing over and over. And so today I continue this journey of mine of personal growth and exploration outside of NASA. And it is an incredibly beautiful space. It's something I've never experienced before. And the personal growth conference that I did go to was a Tony Robbins conference. And I continue to attend his just as much as I attend other people's conferences. I've gone off and learned how to be a yoga teacher so that I could learn the true art of being present with another human being, because that's where the magic happens. When you're present for somebody, it brings out the best in them and yourself. And that's the beauty. I've attended a conference that, well, let me ask you this first. I'm sure that some of you men out there have some resentment and some unfinished business with your fathers, whether they are alive or not. You haven't forgiven them. You haven't forgiven yourself. There's some anger. There's some resentment. There's some things you wish you said. There's some things you wish that he would have said. Well, I attended a conference called the Mankind Project, and it's an American Indian rite of passage. And this is such a beautiful conference because it helped me heal all those wounds and gain a grounded perspective as a man and move in a purposeful direction. I couldn't do that until I moved on. I took ownership for my part in the relationship with my father. And I've also learned to look at the introvert that I am and find out how powerful I really am. And it's amazing what you find when you know who you really are. I've studied the works of Nelson Mandela, Wayne Dyer, Oprah Winfrey, Malcolm Gladwell, Robert Kiyosaki, Marianne Williamson, and of course, Tony Robbins. I've learned the extraordinary power of flow, or as we call it, being in the zone. And you know that you could train yourself to get into the zone and get into flow just like that? I didn't know that. It's possible. And I've also gone as far as reading a book called The Soul of a Tree by George Nakashima. I love woodworking. I'm always reading, always adding value to my life so I can add value to you as a coach and in my transformational skill set. How is this going to add value to my current and future clients is what I'm always asking myself when I look for something to read. So today I continue with Tony Robbins, and I'm a senior leader in his team. I work at his live events, and I help people get through their challenges real time at his live events of 10,000 or 12,000 people. So they don't have a really bad day. That's why I'm there. I'm a trained results strategist for him. And I also use this same strategy to help guide you to the powerful results that you don't know that you can achieve yet, but you so deeply desire. No matter how successful you are, that's what I do. So here's a real quick story about a client of mine who had struggled with a very simple question. And so my friend was looking for the reason why he got out of bed every morning. Why did he put his shoes on, put his clothes on, and head off to work? He didn't understand. Mind you, he's very successful, multimillionaire, great family. Money will never be an obstacle for this person. Spouse, kids, wonderfully respecting his community and his place of work as a very giving and loving person. So I asked the person, my friend, and I'll not use his name because just to protect their identity. I asked him, I said, so let's start with the basics. Let's start with the very basic platform. Just like we do at NASA, we start with a launch pad. And we end up taking all of the things that come up during a day and we ask ourselves, who are you? So answer me that question. Who are you right now? Right now, who are you? Simple answers. And he looked into space. Then he looked at the table. Then he looked to the left, he looked to the right. And he told me a story about his father and who he became for his father. He told me a story about the country he was from and why he was the way he was because of the country that he grew up in. He told me a few heartfelt stories. But he never answered the question, who is he? He couldn't tell me he was a father. He couldn't tell me he was a business owner. He couldn't tell me he was a friend. Couldn't tell me he was a millionaire. He couldn't tell me that he was in real estate. He couldn't tell me he was a former CEO of a company that he built from scratch. All of that is who you are. And most people end up not going into who they are, that, saying that they're loving, they're compassionate, they're selfless. We end up giving a superficial name like, so Joe, who are you? Oh, I'm an engineer. I'm a recovering rocket scientist. I'm a woodworker. I'm a world traveler. Those are things that you do, things that you've been trained to work on. But who are you inside? And that's the question that we start with. All of my clients, we start with the very basics. We need to find out where you are, and you need to know who you are in order to move into a forward motion. In order to plan a true destination of where you want to go and who you want to become, you have to know who you are. So, spoiler alert, anytime that you do anything in life, you're seeking to satisfy an emotion, whether it's certainty, whether it's happiness, whether it's connection and love, or whether it's get away from me, I don't want to be with you. So that some of you are looking right now, thinking about that. It's like, oh, there's an emotion involved. It's true. So from this new grounded place of where I am now, after NASA, I created a 3-2-1 Launch Your Life, kind of playing on my former history. And here I guide you to the same desire and the same precision that the astronauts needed to have their success come to fruition for their mission. And so what I do is I guide you with that same precision. And with my proven system, or this proven system, or the proven system that we use, we're going to redesign your life, both personally and professionally. We begin with your base, we launch pad. We uncover who you are really right now and why you're doing your life. Why do you put your shoes on every day? Why do you take your shower? Why do you eat dinner and breakfast and lunch? And from this perspective, when I'm with the guidance, you're going to become more confident, you're going to feel more relevant, and you're going to finally be in control of directing your success in all areas of your life, not just personal and not just professional, but every area. So what I'd like to do is we have a limited amount of time, but let's look at 3 little things that you may have tried. I'm not speaking to anybody in particular in the audience, that you've tried to change to maybe enhance or make your life better. So solution number 1, you quit your crappy job and you went to find another one. Sounds like a great idea, but it doesn't always work. Just like I did at NASA, I blamed everybody else and I quit and I walked away and I found out that was completely wrong. That's mostly not true. When you leave a job to try and find a better one, you bring yourself, you bring your same agenda of what is this job going to give me in the way of benefits and salary and who am I going to work with? Am I going to get a corner office? Am I going to get a company car? Whatever that happens to be, you have an agenda. You take your same talents and your amazing capabilities, and you also bring your wounds and all of your bad habits from your other job with you. And armed with all of this information, soon enough, this job's going to suck a little bit too, if not more. Just like the same thing that we talk about with computer programmers. Garbage in, garbage out. Or as we say sometimes in other circles, same shit, different day. Yes, this applies here too. Einstein said this in a little more eloquent way. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. So getting a different job isn't going to give you a different result because you haven't fixed what's really needing to be fixed. Solution number 2, I'll be happier when I learn to organize my life and get things done quicker and more efficiently. Just like I said before, garbage in, garbage out. You're going to learn a new product such as Trello or Google something or another. You're going to create Gantt charts. You're going to learn to manage your projects and people and time. You may even hire a consultant to help bring in ideas. But if you're managing the same habits and the same personalities that you had before, and the same thoughts and the same wounds and the same triggers from your emotions, you're going to get the same results. Garbage in, garbage out. You're managing your life in a more efficient way. You're just going to get there faster. You haven't fixed what needs to be worked on. Then there's the tried and true, most people have done this. Jenny Craig, Nutrisystems, Weight Watchers. How many people have joined these and had some great results because they do work short term? You lose the weight, then you get real confident, you feel good about yourself, and then you walk away. And when you walk away, you slowly gain the weight back because it's not in their best interest to make you more intelligent about your health. They need you to keep coming back and buying their products and keep joining their systems so that they're going to keep making money. They don't look to fix you. You haven't fixed what needs to be fixed to look at your life in a healthier perspective. Just remember, depending on an external thing or system to create a better life, that's not where the magic happens. Just like my career at NASA. I was personally unhappy because I kept looking externally for people to make my life better. And that's not where it works. It's always you. It's always your internal programming. It's always your thoughts. It's always your reactions or choices how to act because of your emotions. You create your life. Nobody else does this. You create your happiness. No one else does this. It's all you. So when you look to change your life and make it better, you have to change your identity. You have to become a different person. You have to turn to take control of your life. And so I have a 7-step program I've developed that puts you in the mission control seat. It puts you in your decision maker's chair where you're in control. Because remember, you have 24 hours in a day, and your spouse and your friends and your neighbors and your children. Even your dog and cat have the same 24 hours, but they can't do anything with it. But you can't borrow their days. You can't borrow their minutes. You have 1,440 minutes. That's all you get. Time and choice are the great equalizers. You're in charge. Gandhi, Oprah, even Hitler had the same 24 hours, as well as your barista at Starbucks. What you do with it is what creates your life. So during this limited time we have together, I'll give you a brief overview of the 7 steps of my program. And when we're done, I'll share with you how to get the rest of those, and we can set up a free, 100% free. You call me and we just talk until we're done. I set up for a minimum of 45 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 3 or 4 phone calls. So we can understand if you and I are fit to work together. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? Just let me know later. Nothing to do right now. So my 7-step Launch Your Life program, I'm going to look at the title so I don't get them incorrect. Step number 1, we understand your current life. Just like we talked about with my friend, we look at your launch pad. Who are you really right now? We have to establish who you are. That's important. Step number 2, assessing your current life plan. We look at your life and we look and gather the data, find out what fits, what's interacting with each other, good and not so good. And then we talk about changes. That's when you get a little bit tense. Change is hard, but it's worth it. And we look at why it must change and why some things don't need to change. So step number 3, we work on what we need to get rid of, what needs to go in the garage sale or on Facebook Marketplace and get out of here, and what we need to keep. Step number 4 is where we gain control personally and professionally. This is where we do a little dream building. We define the future. We look off and say, next year, I want to have a net worth of this. I want to have a body that looks like X. I want to have this person in my life who's not there already, or I want this person out of my life. That's in step number 3. We also need to get rid of, sometimes we need to get rid of people. It's really fun divorcing friends. That's all I'll say there. And so regaining control of your life is partly dream building. Because if you don't know where you want to go, you know who you are all day long, you're not going to move forward. That's step number 4. Step number 5, this is where we take all the information to 1 through 4 and we actually create a plan. Just like a recipe. You follow the recipe when you're baking a cake. If you miss something or put it in the wrong order, the cake doesn't quite taste so great. So step number 5, we create the choice. This is your future. This is your plan. Step number 6, just like we do at NASA, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars training you to know when I go through the real life situation, I got this handled. It's easy. It's second nature. That's what we do in step number 6. We test it. We make sure it fits. We make sure it works. And then we go to step number 7. We press the launch button. Step number 7 was we actually put the wheels in motion. We put rocket fuel in there and we hit the button. As your life is moving forward, and we work with this for a minimum of 6 months, when it moves forward, we adjust. We take and we look at what needs to be fixed, what needs to be adjusted a little bit. Just like the trajectory of a rocket, the engines are constantly moving back and forth and side to side to keep that rocket on track. That's what we do in step number 7. So if this is something that appeals to you, if you see a part of your story in my story, you're kind of lost, you're kind of trapped, you've been running around doing everything for everybody else and your life is completely unfulfilling, and now you've had the time during this COVID-19 crisis to truly think about it, and all those crappy feelings have been coming up and needs to change, that's the importance. So I want to give you a copy of this presentation. I'll give you more information and add immense value to your life. I love adding value. That's my whole purpose, is to help someone become more of what they want to become. So if you feel this is something that really appeals to you, send me a quick email at joe@321launchyourlife.com. All one word, joe@321launchyourlife.com. And send me an email and say, hey, I want a conversation with you, and we will schedule some time. Completely free, no obligation. I love to help people. I want to have a conversation with you, and we'll sit down, we'll create a strategy session, see if there's some fit between me and you, if there's a way I can help you become better in your life, so that when you are better, when you show up better and different in your life, your whole world around you changes. It's really cool. And that's what I get to do every single day. So I want to help you and customize your plan, just like we customize the plans for the astronauts in mission control. We'll leave no detail unturned. We'll make sure it is foolproof, or as NASA used to say, make sure it's astronaut proof. So what I'd like to do is invite you in a conversation, joe@321launchyourlife.com. Put in the subject line, strategy session, and we'll connect. I hope you have a wonderful day, and it has been a pleasure serving you today. And this is what we get to do. I love my life. Have a great afternoon, and I'll talk to you soon.